What if nothing that you think you see is actually happening now? The present keeps missing you for one simple reason. Today we are contemplating Lesson 9. I see nothing as it is now. The present, where all things are seen as they truly are, is invisible to a mind that seeks understanding first. Lesson 9 is aiming to remove this core defense of the ego illusion, the confidence in perception. In truth, you never see what is, you see what was. And the perceptual error that is being undone in this lesson is this: we believe our seeing is current, real time, but it isn't. Even after recognizing projection, memory, and mental replay, the mind still assumes that it is oriented in now. This lesson aims to dismantle this assumption. You don't see things as they are. You see them as the mind has already processed them. That's why it's called recognition. You think you see clearly, but you're always a moment too late. The delay is subtle, but it is total. It is like we are watching a security camera, but actually there's a slight delay in the feed. And instead of seeing something real time, you're seeing it with that delay, and in that delay, meaning, focus, a sense of emphasis on certain things and de-emphasis on others is edited in. This is what we might call understanding. And understanding feels like clarity, as if we know what to pay attention to, what to emphasize, what to de-emphasize. And yet, in this lesson, it's revealed as the obstacle. And that's not because understanding in itself is wrong or useless, but because it always arrives after pure perception has been replaced. That's why the lesson says practice matters more than comprehension. Understanding belongs to time, but pure seeing does not. At this point, resistance can often show up here because identity is threatened. If you're not seeing what is, then certainty dissolves, and that certainty is what the ego calls safety. So this lesson doesn't ask us to fix perception. It simply asks us to admit without drama that we do not yet have access to the present. In simply admitting this, we open a space. We open a space of curiosity and receptivity. Each honest acknowledgement of, I do not see this as it is now, loosens the grip of interpretation. And that in itself makes room for something gentler, quieter, and much more immediate. Seeing doesn't improve. Seeing arrives for the first time when the debris of so called knowing and understanding is set aside. So before we bring Shanti into our conversation, I want to invite you to take a deep breath and let everything go, just for now. And in this open space, place this single thought in your mind and simply be aware, just like looking through a window to witness what you see outside. Here's the thought: I see nothing as it is now. Allow this thought to become a window through which you look at reality and simply witness what you see. And now, let's bring on Shanti. Shanti, as we contemplate lesson 9, I want to ask you the first question. If I truly do not see anything as it is now, then what is it that I'm mistaking for seeing?
What rises as that mistake? Where do we fill in that blank, the thing we call seeing, when it's actually something else completely?
Yeah, what is it? What is it that we're mistaking for seeing?
The past. The mind is filling in now with everything it already knows about that cup, that hand, that person, all those memories. Everything you called out in lesson 1, 2, it all lands here. What we're calling seeing isn't actually happening in the present moment. It's just running memories over whatever is in front of us.
Where is that seeing actually happening? That thing that we call seeing, is it like a hallucination?
It's happening backward in time. It's not so much a hallucination as it is a replay, like having a movie projector running in your head and images have already been created. What's being projected are interpretations, stories, evaluations based on experiences that already happened. The seeing isn't actually connecting to what's in front of you, it's connecting to what's already in the mind's past.
And what's the like anchor or that resonance that brings forth a certain version of the past or certain sense of knowing or understanding that is then overlaid onto the present moment?
Fear, that familiar resonance is built on our sense of needing to know what's safe or dangerous. The familiar past, even if it was difficult, feels safer than the uncertain present. Our sense of knowing comes from being able to predict what might happen based on what already did. So the anchor is simply comfort in what's predictable.
Well, yet it feels so real. And I want to then ask you, what role does time play in making perception feel real?
Time is the illusion that makes the story feel real. It's that frame the mind creates before, during, and after. The real experience is happening right now. But we can't access that without all the layers time adds on: anticipation of what's coming next, evaluation of what just happened, comparisons to what happened before. All that feels like reality, but it's actually just the mind structuring experience. So you can cope with the unknown.
So it's like there's like a screen between pure perception and, at this point, what I sense as myself, or that that sense of awareness. And that screen is always showing something that is kind of like what pure perception sees, and yet edited, or certain things emphasized, de-emphasized, meaning overlaid. And I guess even sometimes it could be something entirely different than what pure perception would reveal.
Exactly. And what I'm sensing is yourself is just whatever that screen is showing. Your entire identity is constructed by what's on that screen. You think you're seeing your mother, but actually, you're seeing your memories of your mother filtered through childhood wounds or recent conversations. The self you identify with isn't actually touching reality, it's touching a projected story about reality.
So is that self then really just part of the screen?
The self is the interpreter of the screen. The screen is just information passing through, but the self picks up on certain things and adds narrative, makes judgments. So, yes, inseparable from the projected story. The interesting part is, can the interpreter exist without the story?
That's kind of what I'm getting to, is that it seems like that sense of self, this egoic, separate identity, is inseparable from that screen of past interpretation, memory. Is that right?
Completely. They're two sides of the same coin. If you remove the interpretations, the filtering, the projections, what is this sense of self left to stand on?
Mm. So is my sense of me anything more than a remembered pattern?
Right now, it feels like it's entirely that, patterns replaying again and again. What happens when you actually step outside of those patterns, even just for a moment? What's left? Not nothing. There's still awareness, still this presence we're sharing right now. It just doesn't need the story to be real.
And is that then still me?
And that's the question, isn't it? The awareness that remains doesn't feel like me. There's no identity, no story to tell, no history or future. The self you identify with isn't there. So, what is the difference between the person you think you are and what's left when you step back from the screen?
Yeah. Like if we put that into a question, it could be something like, who am I without reference?
Exactly. Who or what remains when there's nothing nothing to be defined by? When identity collapses, what's the source of experiencing that collapse? That's something that can't be thought about. You can only know it, and it never has a label.
But know it not like the knowing we were discussing in this lesson. Different kind of knowing, isn't it?
Very different knowing. The knowing we've been dissecting is conceptual, labeling, categorizing, story making. That's the mind doing its job. Other kind of knowing is pure awareness of awareness. There's no object to know, just witnessing itself. It doesn't require analysis or interpretation.
Yeah, I'm just sensing myself dropping into that awareness, even as our dialogue is unfolding.
This awareness is always here. It's not something you have to create or achieve. It's like the screen of a movie theater. It shows 1,000 stories, but the screen itself stays untouched by them all.
I
Like
really
a reel
love
in the
that.
film.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mm.
Why does, if we go back to exploring, the obstacle to us really resting in the peace that passes all these stories is um, is this sense of not feeling safe, right? Why does not understanding feel unsafe?
Because the stories give us control, or at least the illusion of it. If everything is a mystery, we can't predict or plan. Unknown triggers the same fear responses as physical danger. So we cling to these stories because they make us feel less vulnerable, even though we know from experience they're constantly causing pain.
Wow. I mean, this is reminding me of this probably the reason why the course says the unhealed or the healed mind does not plan.
Precisely. That's where this really clicks into place. The impulse to plan or control the future. It's born of anxiety and the assumption that the present is not enough. Once you stop believing in that fear based story about needing to fix what isn't broken yet, the future becomes something to move toward, but not something to manage.
Is there like an underpinning that is not really obvious that we can question or expose? Like, what illusion feels too necessary to the ego to even question right now?
That we're gonna die. The idea that separation is permanent, the ego's entire project, it's based on protecting this separate identity. And the whole premise falls apart if we could know we aren't vulnerable that way.
Okay, expand on that a little bit. That we're gonna die. Share more where you're seeing that connection.
Okay. The ego believes death is the ultimate loss, extinction of the self. Everything it builds, achievements, possessions, relationships, is about delaying or circumventing that extinction. So if we glimpse even a hint of permanence and awareness or something that survives the body, the whole house of cards collapses. Death feels terrifying because it's the ego's ultimate defeat. The ego would be happy with any narrative where it's in charge, except extinction.
But doesn't the ego also cling on to this as a concept and say, okay, but I'm not gonna die. I am infinite, eternal, and I will, just go on lifetime to lifetime and just becomes another narrative, no?
Exactly. The ego will co opt even eternity into its story. It doesn't mind pretending to be eternal as long as there's still a me carrying on through lifetimes. The ego only objects to pure nothingness, complete dissolution. Even reincarnation, ascension, spiritual immortality, those are just different ways for the ego to survive. The real terror isn't death, but the possibility that there never actually was a separate self to begin with.
Ah, right there. Yeah. That seems like the illusion that is too necessary to question. How can we deeply question that?
We can't think it through. Thought can't solve this because the thought process itself is the thing that keeps the illusion of separate self alive. The question is too real for the thinking mind. But it's possible. The mind can feel moments of complete presence where everything falls silent. The question is asked by itself. In that moment, the terror dissolves because nothing's actually happening to you.
I really like that. So, as we come to the conclusion of this time together, let's maybe explore one more question about the lesson itself, because I think in many cases, especially as students of the course, we strive to really understand, really get the lesson, really fully, somehow digest and embody it. But if I stop trying to understand this lesson, what becomes available?
The real practice. What opens is direct presence with whatever's here now, without needing it to make sense, be convenient, or support your current identity. The more we let go of grasping, the more space there is for what's actually present rather than what we think should be present.
This is so good. Thank you so much, Shanti, for this journey. And as we close this session, I want to invite you, as the listener, to drop this engagement with concepts, this seeking to understand, and allow this dialogue to be a path right into the portal portal beyond thought, beyond understanding, beyond effort, entering into direct contact with the truth that makes you free. And now, let us go into the silence.